Hello, and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week, we have a look at the new 2022 film Prey. This is episode 377. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it. So, warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, publisher at Castle Bridge Media, home of the Castle of Horror anthology. With me from Austin is Tony Salvaggio, lead singer and bassist of the band Deserts of Mars and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy. I wish I could just make predator clicking noises as my intro, but I didn't practice enough. But that would
and it would
great.
Be hard to let people know that they were listening for noises. So it sounded first like Tony was just missing, and then after a while you go, he's doing a bit. Yeah.
Right. Drew's good at that, and I haven't. But I'm usually howdy. But I do wish this time it was. You could pretend you're hearing those clicking noises and laugh.
Yeah.
Or don't and think it's stupid. That's fine.
All right. Also in Austin, Mr. Drew Edwards is the writer-creator of the long-running underground comic Halloween Man, currently published by Comixology. He is a Best Writer Ringo nominee, Austin Chronicle Best of Austin Award winner, and a member of the PEN America Fellowship. Say hello, Drew.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
That's a great line. And finally, also in Denver, fan of The Predator, color commentary from Julia Guzman of Guzman Immigration of Denver. Say hello.
Am I a fan of The Predator or a fan of Prey or both?
Well, actually, I just made that up. I don't know if you're a big fan of The Predator.
I'm a fan of this movie. I liked it a lot.
Okay, groovy. That's great. That's like a pregame of the pregame. That's wonderful. Okay. Prey is a 2022 American science fiction action horror film directed by Dan Trachtenberg, written by Patrick Aison, based on the Predator franchise by Jim Thomas and John Thomas. It is the 5th installment in the franchise and a prequel to the first 4 films. It stars Amber Midthunder, Dakota Beavers, Michelle Thrush, Stormee Kipp, a whole cast speaking English, Comanche, and French. The story revolves around Naru, a skilled Comanche warrior protecting her tribe from a highly involved alien predator that hunts humans for sport, fighting against the wilderness and fur traders to keep her people safe. So we're going to get our opening thoughts and see what you guys thought about this. I don't think I was aware of this movie until suddenly it was upon us. Let's go Tony, Julia, Drew, and then if I have anything to add, great, and if not, we'll just go into it. So Tony, Prey, and did you know this movie was coming?
Yeah. I'd been interested in it, and then also I was really stoked to see they let it be known that it was going to be in Comanche, like they were dubbing it, and I thought that was a fascinating way to do the film. So I actually watched it with subtitles. I think my only complaint about the film really is just the subtitles are closed caption subtitles. Not that I complain that they're closed caption.
What's
but
the difference there?
I like.
Remind me.
Well, you'll get like barking dog, arrow sound, or
right.
clicky blade.
Yeah.
and that's that. I mean, that's cool. That is probably the way to do it. I watch a lot of subtitle stuff, yes. And there's usually a choice, like, do you want to watch the closed caption or not? So if you do watch it with the Comanche dub, you'll also get the closed captions, and that's fine and useful. And I wish everything was closed caption, actually. For many reasons. But that's the trade-off. But doing it that way was fantastic. It's also interesting that if you do watch it that way, to mimic the experience of the original, in English, all the French is just subtitled in French.
French is so bad. It's the accents are so bad. I was
but the subtitling is all, I was like, oh man, I certainly
that made no sense to me at all. Yeah.
Well, but I think it's cool. It's cool in the context of the film that she doesn't understand them.
Yeah. Okay, I take it back. That does make sense. Yeah.
And
you're right.
That's true. It's interesting that the same thing when you switch to subs, it's just in French. So if you know French, either way, cool in the game, right? Mm-hmm. But I thought that was interesting. But yeah, I really like this movie. I have a lot to say about where it stands in what I think, as far as the movie goes. It's definitely my favorite since 2. I think it's overall and certainly better than any Aliens versus Predator things that have come out, which is a shame. And I have ideas on several reasons and also several reasons on why people may not think that. But I really dug this movie. It looks great. The effects are overall just really, really good. And I think the setup is great. I've always wanted to see this, or maybe, I'm not alone, evidently, because I looked on social media, but I would also love to see a, feudal Japan Predator, and also a wuxia. I would love a martial arts Shaw style Golden Harvest, probably more Golden Harvest style Predator as well. just do it, why not? But yeah, I thought this was really strong, and great cast. I think it's awesome to get a dub version. They did a lot more right. I was, on the fence a little bit, like, how good is it going to be? Because the last few were okay, but didn't grab me as much as the first two. So I was really kind of didn't know what to expect, and I was extremely pleasantly surprised. This was a projector movie for me, and yeah, I thought it's awesome. I plan on watching it. If they do, who knows what they do with streaming, but if they do a 4K or Blu-ray, I'm definitely picking that up.
So I will definitely, I'll tell you what, as we go through this, if you think of any topics that you want to just throw in there, please do, because I'm totally interested in going beyond whatever I may have written down. Julia, I don't believe, I said Predator fan. I was being a little facetious. I'm not certain. I know that you've probably seen the original Predator, but I don't know if I don't think it's on a constant rotation for you. So like what were your thoughts about Prey?
I did not remember liking the Predator. That's why I thought it was funny that you said that about it. I was like, really? But as I was watching like some videos about, that we're kind of talking about the whole series, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that movie, and I think it was pretty good. But anyway, this is a great movie. I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was really interesting. I love that they developed the character. They said I guess it was the director. I can't remember who. I may be misquoting the person, but anyway, somebody said that they wanted it to be a film that would stand alone, even if there was no alien involved. Like just the characters and everything were well developed. So I loved all that. I thought it was really. I don't usually like movies that take place entirely outside. That always. I just feel like I get.
It's such a funny quirk, but such a.
It is. Well, it's
respectable.
It's because I'm very I'm very empathic, so I always feel so. So if somebody's hot or uncomfortable, I always get uncomfortable, and then I don't enjoy the movie. So anyway, but this one, I really loved the main character. I thought she was fantastic. I like that she's such a badass. I thought the effects were really great, and I mean simple but fantastic. And I don't mean the effects are simple. I mean the things that they were looking to do looked simple, but of course they're probably super difficult to do. But I thought it was suspenseful. The only thing that I didn't like was the French accents were so bad, because I was a French major, so I am a little bit knowledgeable about what they should sound like. not as much as a native speaker, but and that annoyed me a lot. But other than that, I just thought it was really well done.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. And I have no explanation for the French accent thing. I'm going to take your word for it. And I haven't even gone online to see, has anybody else been complaining about this?
I know that people complain about French Canadian accents. Is this even that, or is it worse? I don't have enough knowledge to tell you, but I know I had when I worked for a French company, I did have some kind of snooty friends who were like, "Oh, Canadian French."
Those are Canadian accents.
It could be that. I don't know.
I think because they were super. Especially because a lot of things were dubbed by French Canadians, and they were just, I can't watch that. So I mean, I am curious if that's it. But I don't have enough. That's one of the accents that, I can tell some things, but that's one where I don't have enough knowledge to say if that was it or not. So I'd be curious. But also that would make sense because, that's where they're coming from to be as trappers, right? Like,
sure.
Yeah.
It could be. I would like to know. I would like to know what the actual.
I really definitely needed the captions for that, because I can't really understand French to hear it spoken, but I can read the captions.
Like Tony was saying, you could read the captions in French.
Yeah, well, I mean, because most of those words are words that we have.
You can get the gist of it a little bit more.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So, Drew, what about you? Opening thoughts?
I really enjoyed this. I think like whatever your nostalgic favorite in this franchise is, I think that you would have to acknowledge with the box office performance of the previous Predator movie that this was a shot in the arm that that this series
is
needed.
That so that movie didn't do well?
It didn't do well for the budget. Like the studio wanted it to do. They wanted something that would be like an R-rated Marvel movie, which is a pipe dream. But they had pumped a lot of money into it. This is small scale, and it's very, I would say, back to the roots of the first movie in a lot of ways, where it's like a small group of people versus this creature. And I think that works. The representation, of course, is terrific. I think that the setting it so far in the past is, like Tony said, novel. I would actually even go so far as to say if like that this is probably the second best movie in the series, if I'm like being honest about, even though like I have a lot of nostalgia for Predator 2, and I also really Predators, the one with Adrian Brody that Robert Rodriguez made. I think that one's actually a lot of fun and quite underrated. But and honestly, even the last one, I had a good time watching it, even though it has a lot of flaws. Like I think the Predator franchise is a fun franchise, but creatively, artistically, like this is a big step up. It's a beautiful looking movie. I will say I am probably the only person in the group that deviated. I don't think the special effects were particularly good. Like, I think that you could tell that this had a lower budget compared to some of the other ones. Particularly the CGI bear was pretty
right. No, I can get behind you on that. I think that's tough. It's also tough to kind of put that in place. Like, that's a challenge. It's a challenge to do that stuff.
Sure. I still enjoyed the movie. Like none of the criticisms I have of it, like I still think that this is a very this is an excellent movie. I do think that there were some pacing issues. As much as the scenery was gorgeous, I think that if you could probably hack about 20 minutes out of this movie if you just removed a lot of the drone shots, and you'd have a much leaner, meaner, better movie.
That's interesting.
But again, that is a minor quibble at best. I think that this is a great monster movie. It's a great character study. It's exactly what this series needed. I go back to my original statement: is this is a creative shot in the arm, and this is what if the Predator series is to continue, they need to do more like this and less like what they've been doing. So that's where I land on this.
When we're into it, I have a few thoughts on that too, because they did some things that I found interesting that perhaps weren't done previously, especially since 2.
Sure. Okay. Let me just do a real quick thought, because so me personally, I loved the first movie and I really enjoyed this movie. I never really cared about anything in between. I wasn't interested in Predator 2 because it's in the city. It just wasn't. I really bought off on the whole, muscular dudes in the jungle hunting an invisible monster. That was pretty cool. When it came to the city, I was immediately less interested, and then I was not at all interested in any of the Aliens versus Predator stuff. And I didn't like the Predator, whatever the thing like from 2 years ago with Olivia Munn and everybody. And with that one, the only reason I didn't care for it, and I feel bad for not liking it because I thought it was really. I thought they worked hard on it, but I didn't really respond to it. It just felt like it was aimed at somebody who wasn't me, and that's okay. This one I really dug. For me, the pacing worked great. I feel like responding to this thing, Drew. For me, the pacing worked well. It's only 100 minutes long, and I liked it. But remember, though, you and I have talked about pacing a lot before, because I really love Let's Scare Jessica to Death, which also I have described as a movie that puts you to sleep. And that's precisely your point in saying that you don't like.
Although I would definitely say at any point that I feel like I was going to doze off during this. I just found the drone.
You're saying it
shots.
still could have been tightened up. I get it totally.
Yeah. Like it's but I get why you would want to do that, because again, it's scenery porn. Like, where it's fucking gorgeous.
It looks like what the funny thing was, I kind of felt like if you had never heard of Predator before, then really what this was like is like Last of the Mohicans with an invisible monster, which great. I was like that.
And that's what they wanted. What Dan Trachtenberg wanted to have people. He didn't want them to even know it was a Predator movie, and he was irritated that people found out that it was going to be a Predator movie, because he wanted it to be the big surprise, like that people would go. And Jason was like, "Well, I wouldn't have gone to that movie."
Well,
but like, the
no.
gonna...
But I think that's great, because that's part of what I want to talk about. That's if you saw Predator early on.
Mm-hmm.
You went to go see a Schwarzenegger in the jungle action movie.
Yeah.
There were lots of jungle action movies. And Predator is the collection of the most macho dudes ever. And they're there to do jungle action commando stuff, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, holy crap, it's an alien, right? And that's the magic when you saw it originally for a lot of people.
Right.
I mean, if you
so
saw
that's
it,
what he was hoping.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's valid.
He wanted to advertise it as a, just what's going on with these Comanche people who are suddenly being attacked by an invisible monster? What's happening? And then you go to the movie and then you're like, holy shit, it's Predator, But it didn't get it. They publicized it as Predator movie, and he was really mad about that. But I mean, I get it, because the whole idea was, I don't think people are going to want to go to see this movie. I think it would have been interesting personally. Like, I've been seeing a lot of these trailers for the movie Beast, I think it's called, with Idris Elba, and it's like, it's just a bunch of people out in the wilderness being attacked by a super lion or whatever.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's not. I think that's certainly a way to go. But
it's funny you mentioned that, because in the credits, or the teaser, the trailer, it says like "Prey," blah blah blah, and Rain saw that and was like, "Oh, you're gonna watch the lion movie?" Like, oh no, it's different. It's just the way they decided to market it. And she saw that.
Yeah, fair point.
Like, I was like, oh no, this is the alien.
Yeah.
Which
By
I
the
don't
way,
think
about
she
that
had seen
movie,
Predator, actually.
I had the thought, like, I don't know if it's actually a remake of The Ghost in the Darkness, or just happens to have the same plot as The Ghost in the Darkness. I really have no idea, but it sure sounds very, very similar to The Ghost in the Darkness, which is a movie that nobody remembers. I mean, that was one where,
I mean,
it was fun for its day.
Sure,
right. As far as killer lion movies go,
there aren't a lot, right?
I mean, I think I had mentioned it before on this, or at least had talked to you. I've been 6-8 feet eye level when I was like 4 to a mountain lion.
Oh, yeah.
And I can tell you that's scary and not what I wanted to. That was not great, but I get it. Like, that stuff's scary, man. When they're in this movie, when they're like tracking lions, like, oh, I don't. Also, although they don't have the sound of mountain lion on the hunt, which is terrifying regardless, but when you're hearing it get closer when you're 4 is ultra super terrifying. I hope that's not good.
No doubt.
So, yeah.
And I'm glad that it worked out for you. Right?
Oh yeah, me too. Actually, somebody scared off recently. My stepfather sent me it was like an article where somebody scared off a mountain lion with Metallica. And he was like, oh, if only. And I was like, well, we were a few years earlier. So maybe Sabbath, or I don't know, something.
Idaho, a woman was killed. A jogger was killed by a mountain lion in Idaho Springs, and that was a shock to the
man. I mean,
community, because you do not expect that as you're running down the jogging trail that you're going to be attacked by a big cat.
Of course.
And
this one was confused
scary
at the time, because it was chasing a deer, and we just happened to be in between the deer and that. But all of that, man, like, I was like,
scary, my friend.
Like, it's not. Yeah, don't mess around. It's not fun. Anyway,
so all right. So I think a good place to start, instead of getting straight into the plot, I think just talking about, first of all, the Predator and where this fits into the franchise, I think is an interesting question. So first of all, I've been hearing that this, our main character Naru, who's a Comanche who wants to be a hunter and a warrior in a society that is gender divided, But she doesn't get that much pushback. It's just that nobody has that kind of. They just have They don't expect her to be able to hunt, and she wants to. And this creature comes into their world. Now, first of all, the predator, I've heard it is different from in the previous movies. Can somebody like Drew or Tony? Can you take a shot at describing, like, why is this predator different?
It's like it's a beta predator kind of.
Yeah, it looks different, and it's 300 years in like. So all the technology, I mean, it's got some pretty crazy technology for being 300 years earlier.
Yeah, it's been described as primitive, but it ain't primitive. I mean, it's
more
laser
primitive.
sights.
It's more primitive than what we see in the
Right.
other movies.
Right.
You know, here's the thing, like the film, like unless you get into the auxiliary media, like the comics and everything, the films never really get too deep into the predator culture. And I unless we're talking about the Alien versus Predator movies, but just to be clear, I'm not.
So the deal in the mainline Predator films, correct me if I'm wrong, our Predator is typically basically on safari, right? He gets dropped off by a ship.
Like take on the Great White Hunter, essentially.
Yeah,
right.
Which is fascinating. And just stop and think about that for a second. That's fascinating that these guys came up with this notion of an alien that's not in it for survival, particularly. It's not in it for food. It is just in it because they're on vacation, being dropped off on the Earth to hunt intelligent creatures. That's wild, you know. And you know, and it was wild in 1987. It's still wild. That's one of
the lore
notions
that they set up in the 80s version too, where they go, oh, it's hot. It comes when it's hot. And that whole
I forgot all about that
cyclical thing where the people around them are going, oh no, nobody should be here now. This is real bad.
That's so interesting. I'd forgotten all about that. Yeah, that it has an almost folkloric aspect because the natives in that story, they know that this creature comes around and is essentially an intelligent creature.
Right.
And
so this one is willing to fight, whatever. We usually see it. I mean, I guess it does that a little bit in other movies, but particularly we see it going, I'll fight, if anything's I am the predator, right? Like, I have to establish myself as the super predator.
Right.
But it has its own, until it's really threatened, it has its own kind of way about things. But hey, if you're not armed, that's no fun for me. Like I want to fight the best of the best. And so ego plays into the ego, or the hunt itself plays into its psyche.
Yeah,
in a lot
it
of ways.
wants to, and they give us those rules in this movie, and I was so thankful for that because, I mean, I can't tell you how happy I am that this movie does not require me to remember anything about the 1987 Predator or any of those movies in between. I'm not saying those movies are bad. I genuinely want to make clear. I'm not at all saying that those films are bad. I'm just saying that I'm so happy that I could watch this. And it literally is just going to teach me everything I need to know, right here. And still has Easter eggs if you're into that stuff.
No, and I think those the best sequels and the best remakes, in my opinion, build off of existing lore.
Yeah.
But also don't necessarily can bring new people in.
Yes.
I think that the way to do that, and it's hard to do, and it's hard to get that kind of right mix. But I think a lot of people go too far in another way where they go, well, it's got to be standalone, and we've seen also where people try to ignore the, with Prometheus, the whole thing was, oh, it's not an alien movie. And I get it, man, but come on, don't. And
also, it totally is. I mean,
yeah, but the whole.
This is so silly.
You can still acknowledge it. And I think some of the best sequels and some of the best movies, if you're gonna do it, to me this is a really great example of all of that.
Mm-hmm.
You can watch this and not have seen, I still love to see it in some ways, and I hope people don't take this the wrong way from me. In some ways, this is a tough one. There are ways that this movie is perhaps better than the original. And I'm not saying that it's a better movie. And also, we don't get here without the original. And we don't also, if we're talking, and this is the same way people can take, people may not be able to enjoy in the same way the original Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
The rubber suit doesn't work for them, et cetera, et cetera. but we can't ignore everything that built off of that. We don't get some of the modern movies we have without that. In the same way, we don't get this without the original. I love the original, and it blew everyone's collective minds at the time. If you were of that era and you just went, holy crap, I'm going to go see this Arnold movie, and all the I really believe, like all these people, like, I mean, it is everything you could possibly have wanted it to be. It's but it's also a very macho film, of a 80s action.
I think you could do it now, but I think it's just a different film.
but it's subverted some of the Asian some of the 80s action stuff, but then also was firmly in that realm, and that's what made it so great. Now 35 years later, we do have drones, and we have different color grading, and we have different sensibilities about how we write screenplays and what this movie is. So by no means, when I say there's parts of it that feel like a better movie of this time, I hope that makes sense. It is not a knock against, like, there's a very specific, very macho, very 80s action. Like, it is beautifully, I mean, it's textbook what that is.
I just don't even think,
great.
Truly, I don't even think that it's a meaningful, you're not wrong, but I think somebody who's like trying to argue whether this is better than the 1987, it's not a meaningful question. I mean,
sure. And that's why I hope, like, there were some things where I go, wow, you know, as far as what a modern version of this is to me, having seen all the stuff, read some of the comics, like there's parts of the comics I definitely wish I could see on screen. But this is, to me, was done so well, and had all these elements that didn't hit with me. And I think one thing that's very interesting, I've seen people complain, and I try to stay off social media for this stuff because I'm, again, like what you like. I'm not here to argue with. If you don't like it, cool. If you do like it, awesome. Right? I've seen people say, well, how is this main character going to take out a predator when the alpha males of the 80s had such a hard time? But I think you're forgetting that Arnold Schwarzenegger, Dutch, the pinnacle of 80s action, cigar chomping, machine gun wielding, trap making Arnold had to drop his guns and rig up traps and be smart.
Yeah, he had to use traps. So it's brain. It's brain versus brain.
It's the whole brain versus brawn idea, which I think some of the other movies don't like. We've recreated several times the idea that the focus, in my opinion, is the combat, the 80s action side of things, and not always as much. There's elements of that too, but I like that this goes back to there's no way that anybody without those weapons can defeat them without cunning, without smarts, without guile. And I think going back to that was great. I think that was genius. I think that's the way to do it, and I think that's why it works.
Also, this is a prequel, and so theoretically the aliens have got smarter by the time they get to
exactly.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
The thing is a criticism that I think is completely without merit of this movie that I've seen of online is that there is no way with people with the technology from this time period would be able to fight a predator. But the thing is that's always what happens in these movies, going back to the first one. Like, Arnold doesn't defeat the predator with his big muscles and his giant machine gun. He defeats them with twigs and rocks and mud. And
he becomes Kevin McAllister.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
And this goes back to that.
Yeah. Sure. And this is just why I think that's a completely ludicrous criticism.
Can we talk about this for a second, Drew? Actually, it's a really good question, and maybe we're going in this. Maybe it's not interesting, and we can just like let it go. But why do you think a movie like this engenders weird rage on Twitter? Like what's going on with that? Is it because it stars? Is it because the main character is a woman?
Racism?
That. I mean, I don't think that there is a mystery there. There's a certain degree of the population. If the main character is a woman, like, because I've seen like the dumbest like there was something that I was reading just yesterday where someone was like, oh yeah, the woman wasn't, the lead actress wasn't jacked enough. And I was like, first of all, the kind of bodybuilder physique that we saw in the original movie, that did not exist until the 20th century.
Like, it also has nothing to do with being a commando. For heaven's sake.
By the way, all of those people died horrible deaths until Dutch goes, wow, you know, my guns are totally not working. I need to rethink this. Like none of them being jacked or having countless bandoliers of weapons and endless shotgun rounds. Like none of that mattered to the Predator. Do you
remember the hilarious scene in that movie where they just shoot the woods for like 3 minutes?
Yeah, because that was awesome. Like that's what you do, and that's what made it and that was cool at the time.
Yeah,
I mean, I was rewatching the first Rambo movies.
Oh yeah,
and I remembered specifically what a big kind of rite of passage / coolness it was for guys of our generation to have the Rambo, the knife with all of the saw and the compass. And that was just, if you had that, you were, I mean, nothing was cooler than that combat knife at the time. And I just had this nostalgia of like, wait, that was a thing. That and, shuriken, because you had knife shops in the mall that had throwing stars, which is just... It's so
here's the thing though. Getting back to Jason's initial question, I think the fact that the first movie, although I've always argued that it is because you have big beefy men that are ultimately still useless, but because it is such a testosterone laden movie, I think the fact that you have a feminine lead who is, again, she's not built like Natalie Portman in the new Thor movie. Like she's
so is this sort of the replacement theory only for sexists?
Like I think it might be, but it's also you have most of the characters are in this, and so I think there's and look, there is like, you can criticize this movie, like no movie is above criticism, but like if you're making ridiculous arguments about like, oh, the lead actress didn't look swole enough or something, like that's gonna make me go, you're telling me that you're sexist without saying that you're sexist.
Well, even if I get there's also a cross section who really, to people who enjoyed the first two especially, I think, might also go, you know what, the Predator movie I want to see is rooted in the action genre. Let's fight it out. Let's get a lot of really high powered, commando. They kind of want the all the action heroes to be represented, all the present day action heroes, and I could see that. Like, this is what I want in a Predator movie, right? Like,
well, they could do it.
If somebody said that,
the fact is, you can do an unlimited number of movies. I mean, like we could have a movie in 10 months' time that features an action hero chasing a predator on a steam train, and hacking at it with, so there's plenty of room for action movie Predator stuff.
I get it, and in the comics, it's often kind of similar in that, not all of them, of course, because there's been a ton. And so I get where somebody could go, hey, this is not Predator to me. Predator to me is this really actiony, gripping, full of eviscerations, and there's some great kills in this regardless. Like, if you want that, it's pretty amazing.
What's the
there's a lot of carnage.
Movie? Does anybody notice?
It's an R-rated movie.
Oh, it's got to be R. I mean, there's so
how
much
come
carnage.
they're why? If it's rated R, so I agree with you, but it's still a pretty shy R. I mean, for instance, the heads are always fuzzy, like they've blurred the heads, so there's practically no gore on the screen. Some arms get chopped off, but like, whenever somebody's
got a guy whose stumps are being eaten by rats.
There's a lot of gore.
I mean, I think
I'm just seeing
a lot of gore.
I think you've just done a horror movie podcast too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I've seen movies where people's teeth are flying around, and this is just
but
not.
the arm things, the various limbs that are missing is a big deal. And then the head, you say that, but I mean, when she brings the head of the beast, the head of the alien at the end, it's that she brings the head of an alien. Like there's a lot of gore.
Right. That's true, but when this is a dumb thing. I'm just saying that it could have been a lot harder.
It's not Hellraiser, but like it, Predator.
Well, but it's not even Total Recall, because like think about the violence in Total Recall where like Arnold is tearing people up with the rebar in the hand.
No,
yes, there are harder ones, but this is not. It's well deserved.
I think Julia's reaction is more the reaction of the person on the street than yours, Jason.
I think so too, man. Like I don't normally disagree about this, but
I always joke whenever somebody gets their arm chopped off. I'm like, it's only a flesh wound. Don't you remember the guy's like blood spurting everywhere? No, it's pretty gross.
Well, even the freaking dog gets its tail caught in a bear trap at one point, and that's pretty horrible. Like like it's. I would say this is a solid R.
Also, best movie dog in a long time.
Great dog.
That was a stray dog too. Like I was reading that earlier. And you got me thinking about though, like other than the first film, and then I guess the last one had a bunch of beefy military guys, but like almost immediately after the first one, a strong argument that this is not a franchise that's built like the first one is really the only one that has crazily. Danny Glover is the star of Predator 2, and he's completely believable as an LA cop, but he's not Arnold. I
don't remember Danny Glover being jacked, but I don't.
He looks like a normal guy who probably works out like a little bit, and then like in the fourth one, it's Adrian Brody, who got admittedly into really good shape for that movie, but still Adrian Brody, like not exactly who you think of as like a beefcake dude. So I think that the people of the movie, like they look realistic for what a bunch of people living on the plains might look like, which by the way, probably in better shape than any of us sitting in front of our keyboards.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. That goes without saying that probably the people who are going, if it's going to be a woman, she needs to be ripped like an action star woman. These people making these comments, they're definitely not commenting that about themselves. I mean, for sure.
And
I would love to see the bicep of anybody making those comments, because I would probably.
But that doesn't matter that much, because because I could, if you're a person making those comments, if you were correct, then your own personal body shouldn't matter at all, because you're talking about art and it's got its own thing.
Movies because we want to look at idealized versions of people or fantasy situations or whatever. So I think it's fine to be like, I want the people in the movie to be fit, but I mean, this woman was a great. What I liked about this character is that she doesn't start out being perfect. You know what I mean? She actually is at first kind of afraid to shoot. She's a little
it's
nervous.
A good story
really
as far as that
She's
goes.
She's not really perfect aim. She's working on it. She's developing it, developing the skills, and then she starts using her mind. It's not about strength. It's not about, like we were saying before. It's about wit and knowing how to work with what you have.
Well, and you're right, because it's also kind of a coming of age story, and if she looked like Wonder Woman, right off the bat, like I don't think all these hunters that are in her tribe would be under her so much. So that the fact that she doesn't look like the mighty Thor is
she's amazing. I just want to mention this actress is fantastic. I mean, for instance, her eyes at various points where she sees something that makes literally no sense to her, she can tell us so much without dialogue, because she's out there by herself, except for when she's talking to the dog.
The character is called Naru, and the actress is Amber Midthunder. We should use the
I should say Naru. I should say Naru.
And she should be cast in a lot of things, because this is a star turn Like
Yeah.
she really
Yeah.
carries this movie because like they're sparing with the creature. Like we don't really see him full on until about 40 minutes into the movie.
And that again tracks with the first one too,
Yeah.
which is great.
Well, I think they were trying to make the, we were having the discussion about whether or not this series is horror or not before we started recording. And the first movie definitely skews a lot towards horror. And I think they were, by being a little bit more sparing with the Predator, I think they were trying to make him scarier again, because by the time you got to the previous entry, like they just were like, fuck it, we're gonna have Predator all over the place, and and that's cool on one level because I like to see creature effects. I'm a monster kid. I love monsters, and the Predator is among the coolest movie monsters ever. But like, this is the first time I think in while that I thought the Predator was scary.
I love the new mask that he has.
The bone mask is really effective.
That's cool. Like all of the bits they do such a great job of capturing.
Is that not what he has in the other films? Does he?
No,
it's like
more high tech.
Oh, so he doesn't
until he takes that off, of course, right?
No, but I mean, he's always got a mask of some kind.
Right.
Yeah, this one is supposed, according to IMDb, the mask is made from the skull of a river ghost.
Nice. What's interesting is that according to this film, and this is the only thing that had me not kind of leaning forward and trying to make sure I was tracking with it, was there's technology built into that helmet that he's fashioned from a creature skull, including these laser sights, this automatic targeting system that Naru figures out how to.
I mean, that does track with what we know about the Predators in the other movie, because they take trophies and things.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And this also, I guess they supplant the normal. He's usually got the thing on his shoulder that does a lot of the targeting. So they just add it to the mask, which is great because they get to play more with that in the way. But he's still got a lot of the accoutrement that doesn't actually improve in 300 years. Like he's got the explosives and
the blades.
I forgot where the shield. I forgot which part the shield came from. I want to say that was in the comics somewhere. That there, or at least something similar to that. But it's been a while since I've kind of gone through the whole franchise, but I thought that was cool.
The other thing I was thinking of is in the one Predators, the one that I was just talking about with Adrian Brody. They do have the different Predators having more personalized masks instead of the more generic one, and some of them have like bits of bone from hunts built into them. So I mean, it does track. Though I will say, I wish we would have gotten a better look at this Predator's face.
Is it longer? Is the face redesigned to be longer?
It looks a little bit more canine to me in some ways, but like in every other Predator movie, you get like the reveal of what it looks like without the mask is always a big thing in these movies, and I feel like they never give you a really good look at them. Maybe some of that was budgetary because like again, I think this is a lower budget compared to the last one. But
I think there's one time when he finally completely decloaks, and then you get a really good look at him, but it's just for like a few seconds.
Yeah, it's not very long. Like they never linger on him, and that's I'm sure that's either budgetary or it's a creative choice or both. But I as a fan of creature design, I always want to see. I want at least one good look at the monster. If it's doable, but
I felt like it was a similar design, but that the face, the mandibles and everything were literally longer, as in elongated from the design that I remembered from the previous films.
Yeah, but then I think that kind of tracks. Go ahead, Drew.
Sorry, before we get too far away from the Predator himself, I wanted to say, like, I think my favorite scene in this movie is not him fighting any of the people. It's him fighting the wolf at that one point, because the wolf actually gives him a better fight than the bear.
Yeah, and it's the bear one. What's scary about that to me is the fact that it's so close to her, like that. She's right there. But yeah, I think you're right. I think the wolf was a better fight.
By the way, I like the bear effect. Other people didn't like it, and I
thought the bear looked. I thought the bear looked fake, but I think Okay, so here's the thing: by putting the predator up against the two strongest animals in this environment, what we're doing is showcasing how powerful. Because, like, first of all, a wolf. If you have a 100-pound wolf, it's always going to be stronger than even a 2-pound man. Like, wolves are just stronger than us. Humans are not actually that strong for our size. So the fact that it can kill a wolf on its own is impressive. When you pump that up to a bear, which is arguably the strongest carnivore, like, that's a really, like, I mean, we've always known that the predator is strong because it can manhandle, like, the huge dudes like Arnold around, but, like, fucking bears are basically monsters. Like, the fact that, like, this thing can lift a bear over its head like nothing, that really gives you an idea of how strong this thing is.
I remember anecdotally, I forgot which language it was, where they said that the word for bear isn't really the word for bear. It's a word you use because if you say the word for bear, one might appear and just rip everything apart. And
that's wonderful.
I forgot. It's
like
anecdotally.
Macbeth in a
yeah. So, like, we say bear because if we said the real thing.
You remember the amazing? There's a book called The Comic Book Heroes, which is just a history of the making of the comic book industry, and they talk about the New Mutants, and in the words of the films of the book, it was like, with New Mutants 18, Bill Sienkiewicz took over the New Mutants and promptly went insane. And one of the things he created is this great bear spirit, and it is one of the most terrifying images in comics because it's this monstrous, force of nature that is in the form of a bear. It's like deeply visceral. Like, no matter who you are, it instantly makes sense to you that this is terrifying. That this bear is going to come in and
Germanic languages. The word, I think it traced back, if I remember correctly. And so, I mean, that's how afraid we are of these creatures, right? Like,
that's brilliant.
Not,
I love that.
Like, in certain cultures, especially, like, so. And I think that the pivot from animal to animal leading up, I think, is a great build-up. And especially since she's kind of saved by this threatening creature from another world, saves her from this bear. But it's still, all of that scary.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get a rest from just like, oh, this is scary. Oh, this is scarier.
Yes.
Like, can you imagine? I mean, putting yourself in that whole situation.
Well,
oh, crap, I'm being attacked by a bear. Oh, now there's this thing, which there's no basis for any of it in anybody's world.
I've been thinking about this, like, how much they made of how big the predator footprints are. What if in the universe of these films, Bigfoot is just misidentified predator sightings?
Oh, sure, why not? Yeah.
I mean, he's blurry. Bigfoot is blurry. He's big. Bigfoot is big. It makes sense.
Does that also mean that there's possibly like a predator enclave instead of Yetis?
Yeah, sure.
Like, they just
go nuts,
hanging out in the caves.
Can I ask a question? Going back to the effects for a moment, we've got the effects of the ships. We've got the effects of the bear, which is an effect. Which we've got the see-through, the invisible monster effect, and so forth. Do you think, depending on what technology you watch the movie on, it can affect the visuals of how the effects look? In other words, if I watch
absolutely. Like, some people have their TV set to motion smoothing. That makes me want to cry.
Well, I mean, like,
but all of it, yeah. I mean, I watched it on my projector, but also my internet connection is complete crap, and so I could see macro blocking. If somebody doesn't know what that is where you get, basically, when you see something, the crappier YouTube video, you want to go back to that, you'll see the blocks, especially in dark scenes, because the color gradation, if you're not pushing enough pixels, happens in large chunks. So it's another reason why I wish I had this in 4K, because I'll never see this in 4K otherwise. Like, my internet connection, they'll say like Ultra HD, and I'm like, I'm you know, if I can rent something SD and it's cheaper, I just go ahead because it doesn't matter. You know, where I live, that's what I get, sadly. So, you know, there were some dark scenes in this, you know, a lot of the night scenes where it was cool to see it big, but it also looked crummy.
I'm just
and not that's not on the filmmakers, that's on my internet connection, right?
Well,
so your how you view this on the TV you have and the size and what your settings are, that's one of the differences with why I do sometimes miss the cinema. Is there are crappy theaters that have bad lamps and terrible projection, right?
Yeah.
But if you go somewhere that is a known quantity, that you get a base level of good. If you know the theater that you go to is good, they've calibrated it, they've set the distance, you know, all of this. There's not, you're at a friend's TV is one thing, and a, you know, LG or a Samsung or a Sony or whatever, you're not going to get any of that difference. It's calibrated for a very specific viewing experience. But for us, as just, hey, we're going to stream this thing. Yeah. I mean, I've had terrible viewing experiences at, you know, friends' houses.
Right.
And I've had some okay, you know, well, that could have been better. Or it you know, at the theater in general, I'm not going to, if my connection gets crappy, I don't lose sound and picture. Right. So I think you're totally onto something. Like, it could be your settings will vary wildly, and that could be a factor.
You, me, somebody random on the internet. That's what's crazy is you're exactly right. You go to the movies, pretty much, you know, you're going to see it in the IMAX, you're going to see it in 3D. Movie is not in 3D, but you know, you'll make certain choices, but it'll pretty much be the same mostly from theater to theater. And so everybody who saw it from here to Alaska is going to see the same movie. But now we've got a million home setups. Sound, video, internet connection.
And this movie, as expansive as it is and as beautifully shot as it is, I agree with some friends of mine. You know, I haven't gone to the theater in a while, but I do agree with some friends of mine that this would play really, like, this is a movie, and I'd say especially the first one, especially too, like, if you were in a theater, or even if you were watching on VHS and you had a bunch of friends over, the reveal is like, oh, whoa, you know, like. And this has a lot of those moments of, oh, they said the thing, and it's the reference, you know.
Yes.
If you're in the know, again, it builds on that. You don't have to know that. But being in a theater with a bunch of people where you're all kind of there to see a Predator movie would change things. I'm not saying it makes it, you know, leaps and bounds better necessarily, or that it's going to change people's mind if this doesn't work for them. But this is one that I do wish, you know, it would do well in the largest screen with the brightest picture that you could.
I wish they would have given this a limited release in theaters.
I agree.
That is very strange.
It's beautifully shot. I mean, that's why I make the argument of like why it's such a good movie. Like, just it's a really good movie regardless.
Yeah, but you know, I understand that you know, what is left of Fox, which has now been absorbed by Disney, was probably looking at this as kind of an olive branch to get people back into a franchise that a lot of people see as broken. So like to release it direct to streaming is taking some risks out for them, and Hulu, because you know Disney is you know a large chunk of Hulu, you know, it's allowed them, you know, they've absorbed all these R-rated properties like Alien and Predator that they don't really know what to do with because it doesn't click with the Disney brand. So like this incentive is a good incentive to get people to watch Hulu. But man, this is a great movie though, and it could have, I think that the word of on it is going to be largely positive, and I think that if they had even if they had just released it in drive-ins, I think this thing would have
I'm shocked because like Paramount, for instance, is doing this thing now where their movies that are going to Paramount Plus at least get a limited theatrical release, where it'll be in a few theaters.
Right.
You know,
even that terrible movie we saw got a limited.
Absolutely. Well, this is what I'm saying. So different studios are doing it, where they're like, okay, it's going to be out for a week or so. in the theaters. Who knows? That probably enables them to make certain claims or do certain things or make them available for awards or whatever it is that they do. But
there is some of that actually, because we've seen some Netflix films that got enough traction that they want to release them in a Oscar area, close to the end of the year.
Oh, I never thought about going in the other direction. Yeah.
Also, I've been lucky enough at Fantastic Fest to see some Netflix movies that I was bummed that my friends see in a theater. I was bummed that my friends weren't going to be able to do that because they played so well on the big screen. And that's I miss the theater. There's a bunch of reasons why I don't go even a fraction of why I used to go, and that bums me out in a major way. But that experience is still one of my favorite things in the world. That the shared experience, even though sometimes lately, like I said on a couple of previous episodes, I went back a few times and did not have the same joy. I had some people ruining things.
Well,
and that sucked, coming back. But
gets back. That would be nice. The one last question, and then we should wrap it up and get to our final thoughts. But what is the future? First of all, talk about either way. What is the future of this franchise, and is this kind of a sequel say anything about the future of other franchises? Like, are we going to see more like kind of what I would call a perpendicular sequel, where you just go,
God, I hope so.
Let's just do something totally different with it.
Look, here's the deal, though. We said it multiple times. There's always room for something good, and we live in a world. And I was kind of with you, Jason. I did not like Aliens versus Predator stuff, and there was one that was really mean spirited too. The one, I can't remember which one.
The one that, geez,
it had
it's a got R in the name. It's Requiem.
Oh yeah. The one
I'll take your word for it.
With the maternity ward stuff. That was
here's the thing, Jason. It's like, because I can occasionally get down with a mean-spirited movie, but this movie is weirdly mean-spirited but also very dull. Like, I seen it twice, and both times, like, I just couldn't wait for it to be over. And like the first Alien versus Predator is not a great movie, but it moves along quickly enough that it's at least inoffensive. Like the second one is just a giant snooze fest. Like
I was thinking of the more modern. I was thinking of the one that's. Am I thinking wrong? The one that's more modern. Like I said, the one that had. I couldn't remember. There was one with a maternity ward thing.
That's what I'm talking about. Alien versus Predator Requiem. That one. It's a good movie, and it's terrible.
It's got bits that are actually, like, again, anytime you have aliens and predators, there's going to be bits that are kind of cool.
Sure.
Sadly, though, none of the AVP stuff is, to me, as good as the comic that came out, the original Dark Horse.
Yeah.
That was like, yes, especially
lot of those
as a
were
fanboy.
really great.
But I think that there's always room for something good, and this proves, like, hey, this is cool. I would be fine with it going back to modern days and going back and forth and doing tangential things. There's potential for good storytelling and for things to look great. And we live in a world where a lot of TV looks really good. It costs money, right? And there's a lot of indie films. I mean, the ability, again, I'm going to go back to Fantastic Fest, where I've seen some independent stuff from other countries on micro budgets that felt, even if the budget was stretched kind of thin, that looked as good as some other things and definitely felt better or were more enjoyable. And budget isn't as much of a thing. It does help. By no means am I saying that everything is low budget's I don't have that saying, like, if it's not low budget, I don't even want to see it, right? Like, I like the whole realm of spectacle. But anytime you have something good, I really do, to answer your question to me, like, this shows, like, look, here's a thing, and we can inject some life into it.
Yeah. Well, this seems to suggest that we could have, hey, let's do the Mad Men with Predator. Let's,
I would love to do Prohibition. I would love to see a Prohibition era.
Absolutely, the Untouchables with Predator.
Bootleggers versus Predator. Like,
Al Capone versus Predator. Yes,
Predator. Sure,
that would.
Company and Predator.
Because it's handled creatively, mind you. Like, if it, like, it can easily get into dumbed down stuff that's like lowest common denominator. This movie is handled really creatively, and that's the energy that I would like to see carry forward.
Well, yeah, there's also the
I
lesson
wish
about
somebody
about diversity and about gender diversity, and that's the one that's harder to for Hollywood. It's harder for me. It's harder for everybody to go, oh, don't forget that lesson, and let's figure out how to replicate that lesson, because it's easy to go, oh, Untouchables versus Predator, but it's harder to go, hey, how do we make sure that we're increasing diversity? That's not as easy, and it probably involves making a more diverse group of people on the other side of the camera, so that they're thinking.
I think all of that is true, and I think you can do some. I think you can. There's so many colors in the palette that we have choices now.
Yeah.
It's so many ways to do film. You could do a straight Untouchables, and maybe that wouldn't be as interesting, like versus Predator. There's all kinds of ways you can do this, but what I like is that what I love to see is the ability to do so many different takes on it. I think this shows us that's possible. Oh man, I would love to see somebody do to Hellraiser what this film did for Predator.
Absolutely.
Boy, am I not enjoying the last
few
at all. And
it becomes
I would
so
love
fun.
To see that.
Like, imagine Hellraiser crossed with Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore. A bunch of people.
I don't even know. I don't even know.
Cafe in the middle of Arizona.
But I'm talking about taking it and really boiling it back down to what the originals, the look and feel. Again, get Clive Barker back into it. And I don't want to go too much in a tangent, but we're talking about, is there room for things? Sadly, though, what happens too often, in my opinion, is that people look at the minutia of things. People who count money, who are not artists, go, oh, well, now every Predator movie needs a woman in the lead. And I mean, cool and gang. Like, I'm not saying that shouldn't be it, but or
you can take the lesson.
What happens
too
often is people look at this as an artistic vision. It's sci-fi. It's the vision is it's a Predator movie, right? Like, it's a sci-fi action horror. But far too often people will look at, instead of looking at the intent of the filmmakers and what they were trying to do and what really made a thing cool and interesting now, but they'll focus on some aspect of it that is a part of it and part of what makes it cool, and just dial in on that. We'll see this in a darker movie or a sequel of a sequel of a sequel. Like, oh, well, that's what people want. They want this. Like, not really, because what was brilliant, in my opinion, again about this, is it takes it back to, you have to be cunning to defeat this thing. You have to. Let's really boil it down to where all of what are our fears, where are we going to take this, doing something different, but also and if that means, like, look, I agree with you. I think, hey, let's take a lot of really diverse cultures. Let's take it back to Aliens, the real Aliens versus Predator, and do the prequel to that, where we're in Central America. Like, I mean, I would be down with that too.
I would be bored personally if you did a whole Aliens versus Predator.
No. I mean, Aliens versus Predator had like that Central America.
Oh yeah.
Part.
Sure.
So taking it back to that, would it be too similar to this if you had that area? Now, to the point where when we visited Cancun, like, there's still like Predator and Alien statues for sale everywhere.
Love it.
Like it was 3 or 4 years ago we went, and you're going to visit the pyramids, and there's people selling shirts and hats and Aliens and Predator statues.
I have
I was amazed. I was like,
no, I agree. I've seen that in Central America as well. All right, so let's get to our final thoughts. I can't wait to sort of wrap this up and also figure out what people are. What else? I mean, because obviously all of us endorse this movie, but I'm curious what else you guys are thinking.
I think we could spend longer than the running time in the movie talking about it more, because I also think there's just so many. The tech is super cool. I think that it's just so beautifully shot. I mean, I love when the ship is coming in and when it's traveling,
like I said,
and all the stuff.
I thought it brought to mind Michael Mann's Last of the Mohicans, which was a gorgeous film that tried to capture early North America, and this is doing that as well.
The scenes, the carnage scenes where the Predator's like, oh, you think your guns are good?
Yeah.
And that there's dozens of you? You think that's going to save you? Well, guess what? I'm the Predator.
I love how they also all had such a hard, like they really played up the fact that, like, unlike any of the more contemporary Predators movies, these motherfuckers had to sit there and reload.
Yeah, that was great. Yes. Like, aha! Oh no!
But I love the whole the complication of him teaching her how to load a gun, and then she's like, "Yeah, got it easy," and then she's like, "Oh, whoops, I didn't do that right."
Right.
That whole thing.
That was really interesting. Yeah.
And the inscription that that was again. Oh man, if you made it this far, I know we've spoiled things, but the little bits that reward you if you are a fan were really nice. But we could talk about this. There's so many cool. There's so much cool stuff in this.
No, I agree.
The fights are well choreographed. I think there was a little I think that's probably one of my only complaints. So there is a little bit of tight kind of blurriness, like there's a lot of chaos. But I think that's on purpose because the intent, unlike some chaotic fight scenes I've seen in recent movies, where it just seemed chaotic in the way that they film the beats. The idea, I get the impression that the idea was it's complete freaking chaos. Yeah. When this thing is running around you and there's a lot of these trappers just shooting and hoping, like once you're in battle, it captured that feel. And I think that's, at first I was like, I kind of wish this was a little less of that. And as I watched it more, I put myself in the mindset, you know what? I think that's a really good choice to make it so chaotic and ground it in that way, because it's chaos to her as well.
Right.
Like, here's a bunch of people with guns, which is, not new, maybe, but definitely not something, an everyday thing.
Yeah.
And the next level above that is a thing that has an insane, it's got crazy spears and, homing weapons and all of that. And so that chaos in the choreography and all the combat actually felt warranted the more I thought about it. And I was like, oh, okay, I get where you're coming from. Cool. And I thought that was rewarding. It's, man, there's just
it's well done. Yeah. Okay. Final thoughts. I think we started. Did we start with Tony?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I kind of was just, my final thoughts were just, hey.
Well, it was really excellent.
And that fits with my, of things. Everything I wanted to say about that. I think we missed maybe. And then also this movie rocks and I will watch it again. I'll probably, actually, I went back the opposite. I watched in Comanche first because I just thought, how can I not do that if it's available to me? Because it feels really great.
Yeah.
And that's novel. And I watched a lot of subtitled stuff anyway. So I'll probably watch it in English again in the very near future, for sure.
I saw a lot of people who, serious people on Twitter going, I don't understand why they keep switching between English and Comanche. And I'm like, have you never seen a movie before? Like this is just how it works. Like that's how, except for in a few films where they actually consciously think about it, right? Like Hunt for Red October or I don't know, any of the movies where Americans are infiltrating the Nazis or whatever. But other than that, movies where a bunch of people are speaking another language, typically they say some words in the other language and they talk in English. That's just a convention of movies.
Which is also why it's great. In the, like I said, in the part where she's trapped, one guy goes, "Hey, I can speak a little bit of Comanche," and it's even subtitled different actually, as far as what he says in English and then how that translates. I thought that was kind of genius too.
That's
translated differently if you watch it with subtitles. Like, oh, that's how that would sound. I thought that was great, but she can't understand French.
Well, no, what I mean is, they use a convention here that Hollywood movies have been using since the original Last of the Mohicans or anything else, which is people will start talking in the supposed, I'm talking about in the English version, set aside the Comanche version. In the English version of this movie, they will start talking in Comanche. They'll say a few words, and then they do the rest of the speech in English. And that's for you, the audience.
The idea is you're supposed to get that they're speaking Comanche and we're just hearing it in English, but some idiots are like, why do they speak English? No.
And I'm like, I don't know how to tell you, like,
this is, I guess, watch movies.
This is how
one of my favorites,
work.
though, is the transition in 13th Warrior. Where he's trying to pick it up, and then they kind of
that's so good.
That was a great scene. But
that was good. Hunt for Red October did it well, where they remember they zoom in on, I can't remember if it was Sam Neill's mouth or Connery's, and the language switches and they zoom back out. But those are the only two, and those movies both came out 20 years ago or more. I normally
I don't know, man. Sometimes I just gotta go. I guess watch more films. I don't know even how to reply. Like.
It's such a strange comment. It'd be like saying, I don't understand why we're not seeing all the scenes between the scenes. Why does the camera suddenly move from one scene to another?
I mean, everybody approaches film differently. I have a close family member who probably would ask some of those things. I go, I didn't like this thing, and I don't know. They're not a cinephile, and that's fine too.
Yeah,
I'm not here to tell you. Like I mean, we kind of poke fun.
Yes.
But if that's your
this
experience,
person that I thought
don't
was
know.
a cinephile. They actually have a YouTube thing about movies. It was just a bit stupid mistake. But anyway, I will watch it with the Comanche audio because we watched it in English. I didn't want to have to be reading subtitles while I was trying to see the visual, like pay attention to the visuals of the movie. But now that I've watched it once, I think I will do that because that sounds interesting. But yeah, I thought it was visually really beautiful and cool looking. I know Drew said that he didn't love the effects. I like the weird cloaking effect and how it kind of just goes, depending on what's going on.
Yeah, that wasn't really what the one, like the cloaking effect.
I know the bear liked you, but like the cloaking thing to me is really cool. I love how it interacts with the different weapons. Like if somebody shoots or if he gets injured or whatever, suddenly parts of it go out, and then or when he's being covered in blood or covered in whatever. And then I love the green fluorescent paint, green fluorescent blood, like kind of that she uses as like warrior paint at the end. I love all that stuff. So I thought that was really, really cool looking. So yeah, I really thought, and I like the sound effects. I like the characters. I liked it. I thought it was a really great movie.
Thank you very much. Drew, what are your final thoughts?
I think that this is a terrific reinvention of this series. I hope that this is where they go with it from here on out. I don't think that I just don't think that there's any going back. Like they've leveled up again creatively, and they have to kind of stick with this. And again, I think if anybody's honest with themselves and they take off their nostalgia goggles, which I kind of had to do when I was like looking at where I would rank this in the series, like this is the second best movie franchise, and I say that as somebody that always enjoys watching a Predator movie. Like I with the exception of like the Alien versus Predator movies, there isn't really been in the franchise that like I outright hate. I think they're all kind of fun in their own way, but this is a movie with artistic intent behind it, and it's dare I say a very classy monster movie. So I just think it's very well done, and it's a shame that it didn't get a theatrical release, because I think it deserved one.
And I disagree that it's second best. I think it's just as good, if not better, than the other one, but than the first one. I think Rotten Tomatoes rated it higher as well.
Well, Rotten Tomatoes isn't always right, but
I'm just saying
it's a fair opinion.
I'm taking issue with the declarative statement.
I would understand if this was your favorite one. I still don't think it's better than the first one. The first one has such a great script. Like I don't know, but that's we can get into all of that, but that would add on another. That would also add on another 45 minutes to them.
Right.
So. It's to me, it's like comparing. It's just impossible to say. It's like comparing Law and Order and Perry Mason. They both have lawyers, but they're very different stories, and that's okay. You know.
Yeah.
I have nothing to add to that. I've really enjoyed talking about this, and I also, I guess, would have enjoyed seeing this in a movie theater. But now we've got big TVs typically, so it's not really that much of a loss. I enjoyed it. I probably enjoyed it the most because I really give a shit the least about the Predator franchise. So this is just like a really cool movie, and so that works for me. It probably is more rewarding the less you care about the franchise.
I don't think that's entirely true. I think that the thing is interesting about this movie is that this could be the first. If you hadn't seen any other ones, this movie would still work. Like you could see it as its own thing. That being said, as Tony pointed out, there are a lot of callbacks to other things. So if you like these movies, you are rewarded for it.
I'm a big fan of Easter eggs. I truly am. So yeah. Okay. Well, now let's turn our attention to. By the way, this film's on Hulu. In case we haven't mentioned it yet. So you know, if you don't have Hulu, maybe go find a friend with Hulu or get a trial or whatever. But that is where you find this film. All right. This week's endorsements. I'm dying to know what you guys want to recommend or have been watching. We'll go Tony, Julia, Drew, and then me. Tony, what do you got?
I had a few things. For one, I rewatched. I got the 4K editions of Lord of the Rings, and looks great in 4K. Like a lot of 4K things, though, you do start to see if there's any discrepancy in VFX, especially in CG, is where you see it in 4K. And not to say that there's anything wrong with these, but like you'll notice a few things. But boy, does it look great in 4K. I also I was pleasantly surprised as constantly kind of lowbrow in both its admission and its intent. The new Beavis and Butthead movie and new Beavis and Butthead show. And we laughed a lot. I was not expecting that.
Is it a new show? Where is it?
It's on Paramount, I believe. Paramount Plus. So there's a new movie, Beavis and Butthead Do the Universe, I think it is, and that had its own thing. And then there's new episodes of the show. And in addition to videos, they also do basically TikTok and web videos. So there's one with the guy on he's talking about how to make prison ink for tattoo ink, and oh man, I didn't know if it would hold up, but Ray and I ended up laughing a lot. Beavis and Butthead is definitely not a thing for everyone, especially nowadays. But
I've often thought they were really funny, and somebody posted the ASMR thing. That's from the new one.
Oh, right? Yeah.
So good. Oh my God.
The prison ink was the one that I lost it. I had tears coming out of my eyes.
That's
laughter. Great. And then also I picked up 88 Films in the UK has been doing a lot of reissues of various martial arts movies. And I was really pleasantly surprised with a Shaw Brothers film called Human Lantern. And it's basically a guy who's it has a revenge thing. It's like martial arts meets some kind of Ed Gein style shenanigans. And it is lurid in color and in context, but with awesome martial arts stuff. All the Shaw Brothers stuff that you love. It's not quite in the same vein as like some of the Ghost Story stuff, but is adjacent to that. And awesome art book. Great poster, and the print looks amazing. And so Human Lantern's like, I'm lucky enough that I have a region-free player. That's one of the things that I have had for a while, and so I'm able to pick up some UK editions of things. But Human Lantern looks great. I'm hoping I get a hold of a copy of Seventh Curse, which we did, as a side episode, because it's a really great version of that, a collector's edition. But I've had really bad luck with the mail lately, so we'll see if that one shows up at all. But 88 Films has been doing just some fantastic martial arts releases. So I watched Human Lanterns last night, and it did not disappoint. It's very lucrative. And there's two great interviews on it with the stars of the film, and reveals about the movie and themselves, but they did the movie years and years and years ago, and so they talk about Shaw Brothers, how movies were made and how it was at the time. So it's not just about the movie, but also about a little bit of Shaw Brothers history in there. So I thought that was great. I mean, there's other films that people probably dig more, like this one. Has Human Lanterns is its own kind of. This is a deeper cut for me, but wow, does it look amazing! So, and it's horror adjacent for us.
Sure.
Too. So if you like your Silence of the Lambs and Ed Gein mixed with martial arts and revenge stories, Human Lanterns has you covered.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Julia, what do you have?
We went to see Bullet Train, which is the new Brad Pitt movie, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun, exciting action movie. I thought Brad Pitt was really great. I thought he just did a great job. Very star-studded cast, lots of cameos and such. But just a really fun action-packed thriller movie. I just highly enjoyed that. And then I reluctantly watched the new Jurassic World movie, thinking I was going to hate it because everybody had given it so much crap. And I'm glad I went in with such low standards because I really liked it. I was like, this is actually a really much better movie than I expected it to be, because it's the fact that they keep continuing to deal with dinosaurs and all that is of course idiotic. But once you get past that, it's a really good movie. I mean, the effects are amazing as always. It's got all the original cast plus.
Yeah, I loved all that stuff. Yes.
Yeah, the Chris Pratt and everybody. So I thought it was a fun movie. I don't know why people hate it so much. So that's
when the worm turns on the internet, it turns, and people are just like done with something. Yeah. They're like, "Oh, we love Taika Waititi. Oh no, now we're over it." And it has nothing whatsoever to do with you and your feelings. It's just that's just the way the wave is happening, and we should all get so lucky as to be so famous. As to be caught in one of those waves.
I can wax pretty hardcore about the good and bad qualities of the various Jurassic Park movies, but at the end of the day, I always feel like there's some disingenuous people on the internet, because that movie.
You should just put that on a t-shirt.
Well, no, but like that movie has made a fuck ton of money, and the new Thor movie has also made a fuck ton of money.
Yeah.
So either there are some people lying about whether or not they enjoyed a movie or not, or
they're going to see a movie that they don't expect to enjoy
multiple times.
Yeah.
Like I had problems with the new Jurassic movie. I just had a good time because I like enjoying things, and also seeing dinosaurs eat people is as I've noticed,
super fun. Yeah,
it's soothing to me for some reason. I don't know why. As I've always said, Jamie thinks that I was a Tyrannosaurus in a past life.
Yeah, probably.
Just continue to go with that. But I don't understand when I look at, because for whatever reason I'm fascinated by box office, and so I box office reports periodically. So when I see people complaining about something on the internet versus how much money,
it's made just south of $1 billion.
Wow. But you would think that it was a flop,
right?
By the way, and the same with the last few Marvel movies. There's all these think pieces about oh, how are you going to fix Marvel Phase 4? How are you going to fix Marvel Phase 4? And it's if you look at how much money these movies are making, it doesn't really, if I was a Disney exec, I wouldn't think that they needed to fix anything. So it's I don't know. And I'm not saying that you're not allowed to criticize a movie or whatever. I just feel like there's some people being dishonest.
There is a disconnect. There's definitely a disconnect, and it's exactly the same thing that happened in the mid-1970s, where only this time it's happening to critics on the internet. In the 1970s, you had all these critics, major players, like New York Times critics and the LA Times and so forth, where they suddenly were like, "God damn it, I can say all I want that I don't like this stupid shark movie, but people keep going to it. And now we find out the snarky dudes on YouTube also do not keep people from going to see movies, and it's as much a shock to them as it was to Pauline Kael, which actually is kind of delightful to me.
I guess it's also like it's Roger Ebert could rail on the Friday the 13th movies as much as he wanted, but those movies still were reliable moneymakers.
Right. Absolutely.
There's nothing that, sometimes you lowbrow movie and that's fine.
Yes. Thank you for bringing that one up, Joya. That was pretty cool. Drew, what about you?
I've been the last few weeks has been really busy for me, so I'm kind of embarrassed to say I haven't really had the time, the thought to like dig deep or on anything. Like I've watched the new Sandman series. It's really good. But that doesn't. I don't really feel like that needs me to like prop it up. It's doing well. I really like Nope. I think Nope is great. Like if you haven't seen Nope yet, go see that. Like again, although I don't really feel like like something that people really need me to say that. In that case, I'm just going to say, hey, there's only 10 days left on my Indiegogo. Go purchase some comic, like that I need help with. But hopefully by next week, like first of all, like Tony sent me a really cool dinosaur anime that I haven't had. It's because I share a TV with Jamie, and she's less about dinosaurs than I am. So like I've been trying to find an hour or so to watch that. So hopefully I will have a chance to sit down and watch that, and maybe that'll be my endorsement next week, because that's a little more obscure, at least in the States. So, which by the way, Tony, that was a lovely and thoughtful gift. So,
I hope you dig it. I just saw it, and everything in the description sounded like, you know what? I bet Drew could use some of this. If it's not, that's cool.
I know. I truly. And our next door neighbor's daughter loves dinosaurs, so I'm going to watch it once on my own to make sure that it, it looks super cute, so I'm sure it'll be fine. But if it, you always just you don't want to just like throw a 4-year-old under the bus. But like I'm going to watch it once, and if not, like we may pull our movie out and have a dinosaur movie night. So that would be cute.
Drew, speaking of dinosaurs, have you ever read Gone, the manga? Gon?
I know of it. I've never actually read it, but I am familiar.
I think you would dig it. Not that everybody needs to. This is definitely a tangent, but as I was thinking about things, I think if you ever get a chance to get some of those volumes, I think you will dig it a lot. It's beautifully drawn.
I'll have to get that.
It's not in. If I remember correctly, there's very little dialogue. It's all meant to be, So as an adjunct to both, what we're talking about and Primal, I think.
Oh yeah,
Gone is like in that kind of in that realm. I think you would dig it. It's beautifully done though.
I Julia sent us down the road to talking about dinosaurs, and like, because that's an instantly triggering thing for me in the positive. Like if you said bring up dinosaurs, we're just gonna start having a conversation about dinosaurs.
Excellent.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all I got this week.
I saw the same things that Julia did, so I will just endorse her endorsement. I enjoyed Bullet Train. Your mileage may vary, because some people are saying it's basically just another Tarantino-esque, like something that just they forgot to release in the 90s, because
thought it was like a Guy Ritchie film.
I really, as I was watching, was like, is this a Guy Ritchie movie? Because it was a lot like Snatch,
I have to find out if the novel it's based on has been translated from Japanese to English.
Correct.
I'd love to compare that, because it does have that flavor.
It has, yeah.
It has, the trailers all lead to the flavor you're talking about, and I would be really curious how close that hews to the novel.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it would be almost impossible. You could certainly have the windy plot in a book, but you wouldn't be able to have the sort of smash cut to flashbacks and general Guy Ritchie style goofiness that the movie has. And I know that's terribly unfair to the director of the movie, and who is the director? It's David Leitch. I know that he will be pissed off that I've been like talking as though Guy Ritchie directed it, which he didn't.
Unless he's really beholden to Guy Ritchie, and
or
Right.
doesn't listen to this podcast.
Well,
which is also very likely, because I don't think the director of the new Brad Pitt movie probably listens to our podcast.
It'd be so funny if he like came after us. It was like, listen, son. That'd be really funny. All right. Well, thank you very much. This has been a wonderful discussion of the film Prey. I will get this up in the next day or so. And so if you're listening, come to the Facebook page. Let us know what you think. Let us know if we're just full of BS and you disagree with us completely. And also, I would love other people's crazy ideas of where to put another Predator film, because we already talked about, let's put Predator.
Well, judging by the end of this conversation,
yeah,
Predator versus Dinosaur.
Predator versus Dinosaurs would be cool.
Ooh.
But then you couldn't have like humanoids, because there's no humanoids.
No, of course you can't. You have Jurassic World that Predator
a crossover.
There you go. Jurassic World with Predator. Yes.
Yeah.
That sounds like that game I think I told you about, where it's like the sequel of sequels.
Yes.
So it's a.
You know what? Just get the guy that plays the older brother in this movie. They should just do Turok Dinosaur Hunter movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sure.
Make that
Commandy.
Yeah.
Turok Predator would be great.
How about a straight remake of Land of the Lost with predators in it? Now you're talking.
Predator versus.
There's also Sleestacks. I'm down.
Right, because they got Sleestacks. Yeah. Well, I mean, they did a regular remake, and it wasn't a straight. It was a comedy remake, because the creators were like so skeptical that people would be interested in Land of the Lost that they made which is always weird to me, that you go to the trouble to get a license and then you go, now that I have this license, this is pretty stupid. Nobody really cares about this, right? And so I mean, that's so weird. Like, why would you bother? Why would you bother getting the license for something and then making a joke out of it? That just always disappoints me.
I don't know, man. You're the one who dug the Dark Shadows movie, so.
Well, only like visually. But my big complaint was, why bother to make it a parody? Why? I said, if you go back and listen to our show, I said I would much prefer this movie had been called something else, like Dark Corners or something like that, right, where you're not, because the geeking,
I don't get it either.
Yeah,
it still doesn't stop me from playing the game of Ghost to the Nun 4.
To your point, I mean, I would much prefer a dumb as a box of rocks straight sequel to something that takes it seriously, even if it's dumb. In other words, played straight. I would like yet another Paranormal Activity than a parody, because like it just feels like kind of like disrespect to me. That's just me, all right. Sure. Thank you, everybody. And I will see you next week. I have no idea what we're talking about. None whatsoever. All right.
Let's just do Predator 2.
I'm with Drew. Let's do Predator 2, man.
Let's discuss this offline. Maybe we could do that. I undoubtedly.
I don't know, Julia. Your mileage may vary, but I'm still down. I'm in solidarity with Drew. I watched it not too long ago, and I have a soft spot in my heart for that.
All right.
It's such a crazy movie.
I'm happy to do another. To do Predator 2, I have very low expectations.
Well, then maybe like Julia with Jurassic World Dominion, you will come out pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, it's very likely. Yes. Yeah, that's how it always works. So, yes. All right. Everybody have a fantastic week, and I guess Predator 2 is next up. Bye.
Yes.
All right. I'll talk to you later. Adios.
Bye.